So Lehman, let me turn it over to you. Are we in DLT 2.0? What does that actually mean? What's the impact?
Excellent question. And you know what? The real question isn't just, oh, it's the future blockchain, the next generation of blockchain. The real question is, why blockchain anyway? What use is this of any sort? Is this just hype?
Right.
We just heard about hype in the previous talk. Is it just hype, or is there something here that makes the world better in a way that just a database running on a server doesn't? And that's really what we're talking about. So this is the future of blockchain, DLT 2.0, but it's also why DLT in the first place. And that's what we need to talk about.
Okay.
So let's talk about that. I love what you said.
Why DLT in the first place and why Hedera? That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. When it comes to the cryptocurrency space, there is so much hype, so much misinformation. But one thing that we've continued to highlight in regards to Hedera Hashgraph is the fact that it is a lot more than just that. Not only is it being actually implemented in the world as we know it by some of the largest institutions and companies in the world across the globe, but it is really pioneering and at the forefront of the kind of digitization and the move towards Web3. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. That clip that we played at the start was from a talk Lehman gave at the Linux Foundation, and we're going to be reviewing some of the highlights from that talk in this video to hopefully show you guys that Hedera is being practically implemented across many different industries, doing many different things. And why even use a distributed ledger in the first place? That's what we're showing here. Just because there's a new technology out there doesn't mean that it needs to be used. We have new technologies all the time. Oftentimes, a lot of them turn out to be completely useless and non-needed. But Hedera is solving real-world problems. It's not only solving real-world problems for institutions, but the everyday man on the street through the likes of what Aberdeen are doing, which we're going to be getting into in this video. So let's play the second clip that we have for you in regards to Lehman talking about some of the things that Hedera is used for and why Hedera in the first place, why it stands out as one of the top distributed ledgers out there.
Let's talk about that. What is the future of blockchain, DLT, distributed ledger technology, another name for it? And what are the use cases being built on it right now? Not talking about hype of someday we'll do something. I mean right now as we speak, what is being done on it that could not be done just as well on a database running on a single server? What is the whole point of this? This is all open source software, but is it even useful open source software? That's the question. So let's talk about that. So in Hedera, what we have is a DLT, a blockchain. It's very fast. We can do 10,000 TPS transactions per second right now. We are used far more than anybody else in the world. We're doing over 1,000 a second, far more than anyone else is doing right now. It's also extremely secure, asynchronous, Byzantine, fault tolerant. That gets into the math. That's the fun part. And then other things, very stable, really good governance, and we should talk more about that. And then sustainability. It's the greenest blockchain. But of course, that doesn't matter if blockchains aren't useful in the first place, if DLTs aren't even useful. But we do have a very, very low carbon footprint. So here are some of the major blockchains, including the Visa credit card down there in the middle. The carbon footprint of Visa is 1,000 times what we are. And other ledgers are also huge multiples of the amount of carbon footprint to do one transaction. So if you do one transaction on this ledger, you are using only 1,000th of the energy that you would using your Visa card. And then of course you have something like Bitcoin, it's up to close to a billion. Yeah, it's a lot more. So this is very green. And so this came from a UCL study, University College of London study, that showed that it was the greenest of all the ledgers that they looked at. And then we actually buy carbon credits to make that carbon neutral, and then a little bit more to be carbon negative.
So a lot of people overlook the fact that Hedera, according to a UCL study, which is the University College of London, actually came out top in regards to being the most sustainable blockchain that there is. And if you think about the world that we're moving towards, and actually the fact that you're going to be, that world is going to be running on distributed ledgers, that's going to be a lot of transactions that ultimately can't be costly. Not just from a cost, a monetary point of view, but also from an economic point of view. The fact that Hedera is, 10,000 times more sustainable from a transaction point of view than Visa is a massive selling point. And if you can apply that to what Visa do in regards to payments, but you can also apply that to everything. And Lehman's about to talk about some of the sort of use cases that we're seeing from Avery Dennison, from Aberdeen, and many others out there. And I think he mentions 4 or 5 that we're going to look at in this video, but there are literally hundreds, soon to be thousands, tens of thousands that are all going to be enabled and facilitated on Hedera, one of the only distributed ledgers out there that can actually do that.
And that's what's the important thing. What are the use cases? How can people actually use this thing to accomplish something in the real world? So let's start with Avery Dennison. You may know them as the people that make labels. And it's not just stickers, it's also RFID tags and QR codes that then allow them to track things through supply chains. And what you may not know is that Avery Dennison tracks billions of objects right now and have been for years. Billions of objects going through supply chains. And they are now starting to do it on the DLT, on Hedera. Why would they do that? What's the advantage of that? Why not just have a server somewhere? There's a number of advantages. If you do it on a DLT, then you have the trust that you're never going to go back and cook the books and change anything. It guarantees that. And you have a guarantee that when people look at your books, that everybody is seeing the same thing. You don't tell one person one thing and then tell someone else something contradictory. When it's on a ledger, it's visible to the entire world, and you can't do this two-faced thing where you're duplicitous. This is what ledgers bring. So if you can run an application on a single server on a database, and you trust the person running the database, then you don't need a DLT. But if you really want to have true trust, you don't want to ever have to trust a single person. And this is what DLTs are for. So Avery Dennison is doing this. They are tracking things on the chain. Over 1,000 times a second, they do a transaction on Hedera. Last I saw it was 1,700 per second. Just crazy amounts. Many, many billions of transactions have been done on Hedera, far more than any other ledger. And they're doing this to track the entire supply chain, the entire provenance, so the history of an object, and tracking things like, what was the carbon footprint at each point? So you have this immutable record that no one can ever go back and change, that's giving the carbon footprint at every step along the way, and you know that what you're telling the public is the same as what you're telling the regulators, and the same that you're telling the auditors that are checking you. You're guaranteed that you're telling everyone the same thing, and that the auditors are auditing the same thing that the public sees. And then, when people know what their carbon footprint is, they can go buy carbon credits to offset it. And in fact, other people are tokenizing carbon credits on Hedera and then creating marketplaces where this can then interact with that. They're creating APIs and almost a marketplace of apps is what Avery Dennison is doing through their Atma project. And so this is a way that they are bringing real efficiency and even new capabilities they didn't have before that you really wouldn't trust as much if it were just a single server running a database. This is where blockchains or DLTs actually make a difference. And they're doing it right now. And they believe that customers want this enough that it impacts their bottom line. It's actually a useful thing, and it makes the world more trustworthy.
So there we have just one major corporation out there that tracks billions of items actually using Hedera and putting through, the last time Lehman checked, 1,700 transactions per second, which is more than most blockchains simply do altogether. This is just one user of Hedera, and actually most blockchains couldn't even do 1,700 transactions per second. This is why I wanted to do this video, because for me, Hedera really and truly as a layer 1 stands out head and shoulders above many of the others out there. And that's just one use case that we've looked at. Let's now look at a couple more.
Similarly, OneSpan is doing this with documents. Signatures on documents and keeping track of the document and time-stamping a document so that you know for sure that this document was signed on a certain date and it will not be able to be broken. This chain of hashes, SHA-384, which we believe is post-quantum, means that even quantum computers won't be able to break that chain in the future. And so when you sign your document, you can have a record that it existed on this date, every bit of it is exactly what you're claiming, and you can never go back and change it. You can't go cook the books. Again, you couldn't do that with a single server unless you had 100% trust in the person running that server and you trusted them to never be hacked. Of course, no one's ever hacked, so it's not a problem. But you can do that. And so OneSpan is doing this right now. And they're doing this on Hedera. But it's, again, a place where it makes a difference and gives you trust that you wouldn't have without a ledger. Just using a database on a single server wouldn't do it. It's bringing something new. And why did they do this? Well, what they really liked was the low and predictable fees. So anytime you store one of these pieces of information on Hedera, it is 1/10 of a cent. It's a 1,000th of a US dollar. And the price of the cryptocurrency can go up and down wildly, but your cost is still exactly a 1,000th of a US dollar. It's independent of the fluctuations of the cryptocurrency price. It's predictable. And when you're doing something important, you want to be able to predict your costs. And that was important. And then scalable was important. Being able to go to 10,000 TPS just in a single shard, and we can go to multiple shards and go to unlimited TPS as it ramps up. This was important. And then, of course, being able to be secure for the future. And the chain of hashes is actually unusually large, 384 rather than 256, just so that it is post-quantum. So this is something that appealed to them and why they decided to build on it. And that's why they're running right now.
So that's huge. The fact that you can have predictable costs on a blockchain, a distributed ledger, you don't have with the likes of Ethereum. Ethereum is never going to become the thing that everything is tokenized on, or that companies like the ones just mentioned are going to actually use and utilize, because the fees are just unpredictable. In fact, and not only is it unpredictable from a sort of corporate level and they've got all the money, but also from a retail level. If you don't know what it's going to cost to swap or do a transaction or take out a loan, you know, it prices many people out the market, and Hedera simply doesn't have that. The fixed fee structure for Hedera is an absolutely massive unique selling point that nobody is talking about. Also, he mentioned on sort of a server, hacks can happen. He made a bit of a joke there that I hope you sort of picked up. Doesn't happen on a distributed ledger. There's many advantages. Why distributed ledgers? Well, these are some of the reasons, and these are some of the reasons some of the biggest institutions in the world are actually choosing to do it on Hedera. Let's move on to the next clip, which is a personal favorite use case for Hedera of mine, which of course is Aberdeen, the largest fund in the United Kingdom. Just think about that. BlackRock is one of the major shareholders in Aberdeen. We know that Hedera is also tokenizing BlackRock's ICS fund, which is just huge. And I know there was a lot of sort of ugliness around that announcement, but let's move on. Let's deal with what's really going on here, and the fact that Hedera is far more than hype, and hopefully that's what this video is really all about, showing you.
They're running right now. Aberdeen is democratizing finance. They are bringing finance to ordinary people. This is a big deal. There is finance in the fintech world, investments available to billionaires that are not available to us. They have the ability to invest in things, and they can pay high fees, and there are limits. You have to have a certain net worth before they even let you invest, and it is slow, and there are intermediaries that are taking their cuts, and Aberdeen is getting rid of all that. What they're doing is using this ledger to allow you to do financial transactions very fast, without the middleman, and very cheap, which means they can open it up to ordinary people, small investors. And so they are bringing this to the world. They have a $20 billion, I think it is, money market fund that they manage, and they're now opening this up to ordinary investors through tokenizing on the ledger. So we're not talking about pictures of monkeys being turned into tokens, which is just, I don't know what that means. We're talking about actual real things, money market funds, and being opened up to people that didn't have access to it before. And instead of taking a day to settle, and you go through a broker, and then you have to do the trades, and you have to settle, instead of taking a day to do all that, it's all done in a few seconds. And you can guarantee that it's true, and you can watch what's happening and verify it yourself. You don't get that with normal markets. They're bringing the world of finance to the ordinary people. This is a big deal. This is part of the transition that ledgers are making possible. And it is all on open source software, and it is with the ethos of bringing to ordinary people what is currently the domain of only some people. That's what it's about.
Almost have goosebumps watching these clips, because it really is stating the obvious here, and that is that Hedera is at the forefront of this industry. In so many ways. We've looked at 3 different companies, all unique use cases that are some of the largest in the world in regards to what they do, that are killer use cases, that are all actually using Hedera as we speak. How many distributed ledgers out there can say that they have even the likes of these 3 companies working on them, let alone the hundreds that Hedera is currently sort of facilitating and enabling with their ledger? And this is just the start, ladies and gentlemen. I can't overstate my zealousness for Hedera at this point. I was later to the Hedera party than many. But when I see something, I don't let my ego get in the way and say, oh, well, I really like this blockchain and I've been following this one for so long. No, I pivot, admit where I think something is better than something else, and go with that. Because at the end of the day, I'm here as a speculator on this market. And this technology. I believe in the digital transformation of everything, and I think Hedera is at the forefront of that. Let's talk about Mondelez, which is the producer of many of the confectionaries out there that I love when I'm not carnivore, which I am for quite a lot of the year. Let's talk about Mondelez and what they're currently doing.
And then you have Mondelez is doing customer engagement. They're doing coupons and customer payments and ways of engaging with their customers, even doing funding and settling and all sorts of things in the supply chain, but reaching out to their customers. They also like the low and predictable fees. They like that we had fungible and non-fungible tokens, and those are also very cheap, and they have interesting features you don't see elsewhere. And they're doing all of this. I'm very excited about that, but you might say, well, who is Mondelez? I've never heard of them. Ah, yes, well, you might not have, but you might have heard of their brands. Oreo cookies and Ritz crackers and Toblerone chocolate and all those other names on this chart, that's Mondelez. And Mondelez is doing this for customer engagement, and they say it makes a huge impact.
I mean, come on. We all know those brands, and they're all using Hedera. Like, come on. You know, this is far more than just hype, what's going on with Hedera. Yes, we know what the price actually doing. We'll do a longer update on our price prediction and where the sort of price is at a later date, probably some point this week. But this is truly amazing. This is truly revolutionary what Hedera is enabling. And the fact of the matter is they're actually doing it, which is a lot more than most other distributed ledger projects can sort of put forward. Let's look at the last one in regards to kind of AI and technology, and then we'll wrap the video up.
And then we have Equity Lab. I love this. We talked about the AI hype. And like every hype cycle, many things are overhyped, including all of humanity will be dead in 10 years because of AI. And AI will eliminate all of our jobs. Okay, that's all hype. But there is going to be useful things with AI. But we have to be able to trust it. And so they're doing all this thing on the supply chain of what training data trained your model. And they're doing a climate GPT model and improving the provenance of the data. And it can track, just like we've had physical supply chains, they can track software supply chains. Somebody asked me yesterday, hey, how can we do software supply chains? And we said, hey, Equity Lab, go talk to them. They're doing it right now on training models and what training data and having the history of that. Okay, so these are just some of the things.
So there we have it. A lot of people, I think that Linux, and I'll leave a link to the full sort of talk in the comment section. A lot of people missed that Linux Foundation talk given by Lehman. And I don't know why, because a lot of people are saying, okay, well, what's really happening here other than just hype and what's sort of circulated on YouTube? And I've got to admit, the caliber of content creators when it comes to crypto on YouTube is very poor. I'm not saying I'm the best out there by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not. But what I am is genuine. And that's what this video was all about, showing you the genuineness of Hedera Hashgraph HBAR, and really just highlighting again why it's one of my favorite cryptocurrency projects. And probably one of the cryptocurrency projects that I'm most excited about in regards to what the future looks like and the role that it's going to play in that. Ladies and gents, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this content as much as I enjoyed presenting it. If you're not already a subscriber, do consider becoming one. And on that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks a lot for watching, ladies and gents. See you in the next one.